Oh, let's see here. Oh, Gunter, come here. Come here, buddy. How you doing? Come here, Gunter. You're just such a creature. Oh. Okay, buddy, let's go ahead and check our... Oh, let's check our email here. Well, looks like who we got an email from. That's interesting. Colonel Michael Aquino. Oh, yes, Colonel Michael Aquino from the Army. Let's see what it says here.
Face.
An erection.
And get out of my face. Get out of my fucking face.
A huge male member.
Get out of my face.
If there's one truth in the cosmos, one cosmic truth, the truth is...
Dear Mr. A.N.THROPOS, thank you for the interview invitation, but after watching some of your YouTube video, I don't think I would fit into the swimming pool very well. Wonder why he says that. Again, thanks for the invitation and good luck in your creative endeavors. Sincerely, Michael Aquino. Oh, not every day you get a letter from Michael Aquino. Yeah. All right. Star. Woo-hoo. Oh, your little heart is beating. You've been such... Oh, no. Let's go see who's at the front door, okay? Is it Nick? Oh, all right. Here we go. How you doing?
Do you like my megaphone?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Welcome to another exciting episode of You Don't Know. You don't know, huh? So don't act like you do, because then something bad might happen to you. All right, with us tonight in the studio, or rather in her studio from overseas in the UK, JoAnna Hart, broadcast journalist, also psychic, who has been a well-known in the truth community for years. To most of y'all, she needs no introduction. To the rest of you, she's been on numerous radio shows, including Revolution Radio, also a BBC journalist. Very long line of credentials. Now, are you with me?
Yes, hi there. Hi to you in America, and I think it's early there, isn't it? It's very late with us.
I know it, and thank you for seeing me this late. It's probably almost 10:30 where you're at, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got my cocoa in my hand, and I'm in my dressing gown, and teddy bear tucked under my arm, ready to go to sleep.
All right, well then, with your permission, we're just going to have you on the audio portion, so the audience can listen in and handle it like that.
Sure.
And if you'll send me one of your beautiful pictures, I will post that as to put on the video.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So do you want me to start? I know we're doing a part 2 to Miles Johnson's show that he did. He's just hung on YouTube. So we're doing a part 2 about his desire to interview Michael Aquino, right?
Yes.
Or am I wrong?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, controversial individual. I don't want to say too much, and not that. Well, I was fixing to say not because I'm scared, but maybe I'm just a little bit cautious, because from what I understand, and also from an account, a harrowing account that I heard from you a couple of years ago, this is not a man to be trifled with.
No, that's right. I mean, how I came across him, and what I didn't like was after Max Spear's passed, after he was murdered, a few people said, oh, he's killed by Aquino, and that I somehow knew about it because I was bestie friends with Aquino, which is complete, rubbish. What happened to me, I had published twice, and it was my second book, In for the Kill, and an American lady approached me online and said that, well, actually, it was in Fritz Springmeier's Facebook group, and I was there because of the grey aliens, because I had experiences of abduction when I was like younger, so I was interested in the greys. So there I was on Fritz Springmeier's Facebook page, and she got talking to me, and then she said she was going to read my book, and basically she read it, and then she came back to me and said that she thought I was a super soldier, basically, and so she put me in a little group. And I remember thinking that I didn't believe there was any such thing, but I thought, well, I'll write a book about it or something, because it's quite interesting. And then, so I was listening to everything she said, and then she posted about this man, and she said Colonel Michael Aquino, who knew all about Monarch mind control. And so, as a journalist, you find a name like that quite curious, because it's quite a curious name. I mean, who has a name like that anyway? And yeah, and because it's a colonel, and I thought, oh, well, I'll interview him and I'll ask him about, am I a monarch? And because I grew up in an orphanage, same as James Casbolt, it was run by Jesuits called the Crusader Rescue in London. I thought to myself, well, I'd like to ask him and find out all about, monarch, mind control, etc. And so I found his email online, and I drafted a letter, and there was no response. And so then I drafted another one, and I said, look, I just want to know whether you went to London and whether you had anything to do with the Catholic Church, etc. And, it was stupid, really. It was quite naive. Obviously, he's not going to say anything, but, and there was women in the group who said, oh, you shouldn't be writing to him. And then they kind of chucked me out of the group because I'd spoke to him. But I thought, well, it's kind of annoying. Once you're a journalist, you kind of stay a journalist, and of course, I'm naturally really curious. And it wasn't like it was someone else's story. It was my story. So I thought it was a bit cheeky to throw me out of the group, but there we are. I wasn't like them that would ever be happy sitting around praying. I do pray, but they believed that they'd had it done to them, and I wanted to investigate it, obviously. So anyway, I was speaking to a friend of mine called Christian, just on Facebook, and I said, oh, I've sent an email to the Michael Aquino character. And he said, oh, he's a black magician. And I said, oh, really? And he said, yeah, you shouldn't rattle his cage or anything like that because he's dangerous. And it was when he said that, I thought, well, I'm not scared of anyone like that. And I don't believe there's any such thing, So that was when I sent him the second email. Anyway, I was going to sleep that night, and I saw a kind of white rabbit in my mind's eye, and like it was really, really kind of in front of my face. And I thought, oh, that's kind of horrible, because it was really like a real white rabbit with the nose and the twitching, the bug eyes. And I'd had a rabbit dream not so long before that. And it was around the phone hacking. And I'd worked for the News of the World for about 10 years. and I had brought in phone hacker who was like MI6 linked, and I brought him into the newspaper, blah de blah. And the Guardian's Nick Davies found out who I was, met up with me, and said, "Would you give us?" This is before it all broke. He said, "Would you give us an inside story on, this MI6 character, John Boyle, and about the phone hacking, what was going on, who were they hacking?" And he persuaded me. He was very persuasive. And so I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll do it." And I went home that night and I had the most awful nightmare about white rabbits. And there was like loads of them in my dream, and they were all over me, and there was like dead bodies under my feet, and I was walking on them. And I felt that it was an occult dream, because I know the occult, and so I turned around and I faced these white rabbits and I said, "Who are you?" And they all answered back in unison, "We're Murdoch's army, like Rupert Murdoch's army." And I thought, what? And Nick Davis phoned me the next day and I said, "I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to talk to you." And he said, "Why not?" He said, "Because I thought I had you, and more or less." And I said, I had this really bad nightmare about white rabbits. And that was the first time I'd had the white rabbit dream. Anyway, so this one with the Aquino thing, I was trying to get to sleep. So I went and got up and walked around. I thought, so I won't have that like rabbit in my mind's eye, really strong. And I laid down again and it appeared again, really strong. And I was working with that group to try and work out whether I had alters or anything. And one of the girls in the group said to get various notebooks and to try and get each part of me to write. And in one of them, I said there was a part of me that I couldn't reach, and it was like, felt like it was covered like in ice and stuff. And she said, "What did that part of you write in the book?" And I said it wrote Project Aquino, which is quite interesting. And when the rabbit, like, it wouldn't go away, it was there in my mind's eye, really strong. And as I tried to drift off to sleep, it kind of shot across, like shot vertically away from me. And then that part of me that had written in the book, Project Aquino, went shooting after it. And then it kind of seemed to travel for a long, long time. And then the rabbit went downwards, like really all of a sudden it went vertically down. And then I seemed to shoot after it without having any control over myself. And then I seemed to go down and down and down and down, really like falling for a long, long time, down what seemed like a tunnel, and then landed with a bang on the end. And then I got up and there was like a table and I was facing that Aquino guy, and I recognized him from the pictures. And he said to me, "What do you want with me?" And I said, "Oh, I want to interview you." And he said, "What do you want out of life?" And I said, "Oh," and I was trying to think what I wanted out of life. And I said, "Love, I suppose." And he took me down this long corridor, and there was kind of seemed like there was prison, like little cells with sort of people in them on either side. We walked down that long corridor and came out, and it was like dark night, and we were looking out over what seemed like the galaxy. And he showed me something, and it seemed like, I think it's been a few years since it happened, and I think it was what's known as a tesseract. The
Yes.
tesseract.
I'm
It's a
familiar
shape.
with the term.
Yeah, it's a shape within a shape within a shape. And he showed me that, and he said, if you climb inside there, then you can travel throughout time, whatever period of time you want, either forward or back, and you can go into anyone's consciousness, like even Henry VIII. You can go inside his consciousness and be him. You can do whatever you want when you get inside it. And I looked at him and I said, that doesn't seem right to me. And he said, "Yeah, you can have all that power if you want." And I looked at him, I said, "But that doesn't seem right." And for some reason, I don't know why, not really like me to say it really, I said, "But what about Jesus?" And as soon as I said that, I sort of found myself slapped back on my bed, and I immediately, it was about maybe 3 a.m., I immediately got my Facebook and I messaged that Christian and I said, "You'll never guess what happened." And I rang him. I said, "Can you speak now?" And he said, "Yeah." So I rang him and I told him, and he said, that's the first part of your interview with him. Meaning, you asked him for an interview, and that's the way he does an interview, which struck me as like, yeah, wow. And so I thought to myself, well, I still didn't believe it. I thought, this is like crazy. And so I emailed him again, and I'd never normally do this because it sounds crazy, doesn't it? But I emailed him and said, did you appear to me as a white rabbit? And he sent me back a reply with a link to Jefferson Airplane song, the White Rat Alice, that Alice song that I'd never heard before, so I had to press on the link. And he said underneath, I'll have to ask Grace to change the lyrics to include our little adventure. And I thought it was quite, sort of, whoa. And I told Christian, and he said, stay the hell away from him. You don't know what you're screwing with. But still, I thought, well, this is like interesting. And so I replied back, and I can't remember what I said, but the next thing, I was trying to get to sleep, and I got yanked really hard through my feet, and it was like a pull, really hard pull, and I came out of my body through my feet, and I found myself in a room, and oh man, it's just that started a whole week. Now it lasted, I would say, about 5 days, and every day when I went to go to sleep, I would feel that yanking through my feet, and I would get pulled out. So I wouldn't be able to like lose consciousness. He would pull me out of my, so I would have a continued consciousness. So I had a continued consciousness for 5 days, which is terrifying because I expected my body to be tired, but my body wasn't tired. So I was going out having my day, but I wasn't losing consciousness at night. He was pulling me out, and basically, and I know it was him, it was obvious, I would say it was him, but at that point, he didn't appear. I was coming away, and I was finding myself in a room, and when I was in that room, I was bang against the window, and I was shut in the window, and I was getting flashbacks to being a child and I'm sorry if he's watching this, but I'm only saying the truth. I was being raped by him, and when he came to the moment of, you know what, he changed into a reptilian, and I screamed. And it seemed at that point when I screamed that I lost something of myself, or something happened to me. And I was reliving that, and it was like scary. And there was another time when I was sitting on the end of a bed, and they said, bring in the girl. I mean, and I had a horrid time in my orphanage. I was adopted at 5, but they kept bringing me back to the orphanage. We had to go back there, and I always knew they were linked with my sexual abuse. I mean, my father sexually abused me, my adoptive father, and they were 2 cousins that I was given to, and they were connected to the church. Like my brother's sister was a nun, so she got me and my brother, and basically we had to go back to the home quite a lot. This big old place, run by the clergy and a bishop, and I was brought as a child to sit on the edge of a bed with these 2 men, and the 2 men were having sex, and I was supposed to watch, and I was watching, and one of them turned round and said, what the hell is wrong with her? And I kept looking to the side, and there was something coming in the door, and this guy said, she's not right, get another one. So I was taken off the bed, and another one was brought in. And so I was basically in this room reliving all this. And then I kept seeing a little girl walking away from me, and she kept turning around, and then her face would turn to rubber, and the rubber would start melting. And then another part of it, the room I was in, all of a sudden it went slightly lighter in one corner, and there was these dolls, and the dolls had china or plastic faces, but behind them, their eyes were real, and their eyes were moving. And it was just like horror, it was like absolute horror, night after night. It was like being trapped in a Stephen King movie or something. And I rang Laurie and Fenton back then. I didn't know Douglas Dietrich. but I'd heard of someone said to speak to her, I can't remember who, and she, in the last night of that, the last one, there were greys there, and Aquino was there, and there was other people, his wife was there, and lots of other people, and he was saying to me, who are you, who are you? And I said, I have no idea, why don't you tell me who I am? And he said, what are you doing, what are you doing? And I said, no idea. And he kept like tasering me with something, and when I wouldn't answer, because I have no idea who I am, and when I wouldn't answer, he would taser me again and again. And the worst bit was when the greys were involved, because he was standing over me, and then there was greys, and I can't handle this. And somebody told me to speak to Lorraine Fenton, and I spoke to her, and she said to me, "Oh, you're a looper." And I said, "Well, what's a looper?" And she said it's someone that gets abducted every night, and it's like on a loop. And she said it will keep happening. And I'm like, I honestly thought, what's going to happen to me, become of me, because I thought I can't handle this. It was terrifying, not having any sleep, to have continued consciousness. It's not fun. It's horrible. And she said to me, there are people that go to a place called the Slots, and seemingly the Greys take them over and over to this place called the Slots, and they relive all their childhood stuff. And she says they get stuck on the loop. And I said, am I going to be like a looper? And she said, well, it sounds like it, doesn't it? I mean, I couldn't believe it. And I was literally, I rang, there was a psychic that sort of in my area, in the Yellow Pages. I didn't know them. I rang them and I was crying. I could barely speak. I was crying and crying, and they said, come to see me. And I went to see her. I just fell into her arms sobbing. I said, please help me. Can you help me? I'm terrified. I think it's a black magician that I have accidentally come across because somebody told me this, and I thought I'd interview them, and I think I've upset this person, and they're doing all this to me. And she basically, I don't know if I want to tell you, I don't know if I want to say on air what she told me to do, because he might be listening now. He's involved with bases. So anyway, I used and did what she said, and that night I went to sleep. I woke up so relieved. I mean, oh man, I woke up so relieved. I can't tell you how relieved I was, I was terrifying, the whole thing.
Yeah. Now, was it something that you did before you went to sleep that remedied this whole thing?
Yeah, I'd rather not say.
Oh, no,
because
that's fine.
now
That's
I
fine.
know.
I was
Yeah,
just wondering if it was something you did in the astral or before you went to sleep. And
yeah.
okay, now I've got a lot of questions, and let me tell you, that's the most compelling and scariest testimony I've ever heard in all my years of doing this. I mean, it's just amazing that you were able to live through all that. It's very troubling.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a couple of questions. First of all, you said at that point when you very first reached out to Aquino that you didn't believe in black magic and stuff like that. Has that changed?
Yes, I do believe in it now. I don't
Okay.
think there's many people like him. I don't think there's many people that can do what he can do. I don't.
I don't think there is either. Okay, and so the next question is, now these men that were sitting on the bed and everything, and they said they get another one. Now, the way I understood it from when you were telling me the story, that you were reliving that in the astral, but that is something that actually happened, a real memory from the orphanage or from the children.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and I think he had some way of replaying that to me, which I had obviously blocked all that, and it was just replayed when I was in that room to me. I mean, I can't tell you how horrible. I just remember there was a window. A window appeared at some point, and although it was dark, and I banged on it and I screamed, and then it became the window where I was adopted and lived as a child. Can't express the horror in the whole thing. It was almost like, I don't know, it was almost like he kind of I don't know what you did. I don't know what went on even, but it wasn't fun, you know? I mean...
No, it doesn't sound like it at all. Now, another question I have is you were expressing these times when there was like a face that was, or you saw your own face was kind of like plastic or something like this. And this is very heavily reminiscent of something I've read in one of Fritz Springmeier's books. And this is he described something exactly like that. And it's a certain type of programming. Are you familiar with that?
No, what is it?
Oh my gosh, hold on. I got the paper right up here. Okay, Christine, I can't believe I just didn't know what your answer was going to be on that. But what you have described is almost as if you read it just right off this thing. It's a classic case of one or two different types of programming, and it has a name. But there's on some of these rituals or whatever. Apparently, they wear a porcelain mask, like one of these, masks you might wear at a ball or something. It kind of sounded like you were describing that, but you also described like your face was plastic or was melting or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't believe that. I cannot believe that. This is one of the main types of imprinting and types of trauma-based mind control that they're using on some of these Monarch assets. And, I've heard you speaking about the orphanage and different experiences that you've had. And, just on my limited knowledge of these things, I was thinking, oh, yes, she's for sure has been in one of the programs, And but now that you're revealing this, I'm like, oh, my gosh. And let me just see if I can find it real quick, because there's only a few pages here. This is just one chapter of Fritz Springmeier's book, How to Build a Undetectable Illuminati something or the other. It's one of his most famous books, and this is what I'm looking through right here is chapter 2. Okay. If I don't find it here in these next couple pages, we'll just move on, and when I find it later, of course, I will send the information to you and also make a note about it right here on this very show. Okay, and of course, there's lots of this type of sexual aspect to these trauma-based stuff. And another question I have is that came off of an answer that you gave to this question that I asked about those two men that were sitting on the bed. That was something that actually was real that happened. You indicated that, but what I did not realize is that before then you didn't know it. In other words, this is the process of this attack that you were under uncovered a repressed memory. Is that right?
I don't know. I just started to see it, and when one of those men, he looked like the actor, and I'm sure it wasn't, but looked like the actor Sam Elliott. You know the actor Sam Elliott? He's got grey hair. One of them looked like him, but they were both naked, and they seemed like they were gonna have sex, and I was supposed to be on the bed watching. And I think I must have been about 5 years old.
Yeah, but apparently they didn't like the way that you were watching, or there was something that they deemed to be, unacceptable about you, and so they wanted you taken away and to have another, victim brought in there.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, this is so deep. I mean, this gets really to the heart of all of these conspiracies, all of this trouble that's all over the world. This type of conditioning and fracturing of the personality, the trauma-based mind control that is done scientifically to people when they're children most of the time. It's the glue that holds everything together. It's just the main tool that they that they have.
It's hard to believe, though, isn't it?
It's
It's
what?
hard. I mean,
It's beyond belief. Is that what you said?
yeah, it's hard to believe that. I mean, I ended up back in care when I was 13, and I went from there and I started to work at a detective agency that was linked with MI6. And I remember my boyfriend at the time, Trevor, him saying, "Oh, how come you're working there? It's like Ronnie Biggs becoming a policeman." You know, he was like, "Why are you doing that?" Do you know what I mean? And now, if I recount the story, people go, "Oh, you didn't work for those. Oh, yeah, you think you're a spy." But I actually did. I did go and work for those guys. And then when I finished doing that, you know, for years, I went to work for the press. And then when I was working for the press, not only did I kick off the phone hacking, but I was all over the real IRA to a certain extent that I went and had a love affair with the leader of the real IRA. And I'm not saying that to boast. I don't know why I did it. I just had like this urge, and same as when I went to work for the newspapers, you know, and it's just appeared like an urge. And it was almost like a different part of me because I always found myself not able to be sexual with normal men. You know, I just wasn't interested. And I thought, you know, what's wrong with me? Am I gay? I didn't really like women, but I just seemed to be just not interested. But then all of a sudden, you know, it used to be triggered, and it seemed like it was triggered by an outside source, and it seemed to be connected with a different part of me, and that different part of me was quite like not scared, and like I
Absolutely.
went, sorry.
I said, I mean, absolutely. You know, this whole the sexual aspect of this whole thing is, yeah. And I mean, you know, it sounds like somehow they had were controlling your sexuality somehow, where you know, in some maybe personalities you were kind of asexual, but when they wanted to turn you onto a target or something like that, you became maybe hypersexualized or something. You know.
Yeah, I became completely, I mean, especially when I was targeting, and I call it targeting because it seemed like I was targeting him, the head of the real IRA. I became obsessive about him sexually, completely obsessive, to the point where I'd pin pictures of him on a cork board. I would stare, I would think, how do I reach him? How do I reach him? And it was almost like a kind of it was complete targeting. And then I would burrow in like a tick to get close to him, and I finally did. And there I was in his house, in bed, you know, middle of the night. And, you know, I could have done anything I wanted to do. I didn't think that I mean, my stories, I was working for the News of the World, but then my stories on the Real IRA were so good, and I've still got the cuttings. They were so good that the Sunday Times poached me. But the Sunday Times, I realized when I was going out, and like they would give me a job, like, oh, go down to Dundalk, which is a no-go area, and find out this and find out that. But I noticed sometimes they would send me to do a door knock on somebody that they thought was their assassination person, and the camera guy would be banging off pictures of me. Do you know what I mean? So I think a lot when the Sunday Times pulled me in, they were doing it to find out what I was playing at, you know, because Northern Ireland is a weird place where there's lots of spy activity, and I think they thought I was a bit of a strange one, and they wondered how I'd got close to this organization that had done the Omar bomb and that were really hardcore. They wouldn't let any of them near them. How come this English girl had got near them? And I'd done it through using my sexuality. You know, I'd got this part of me that was very, very that knew what to do, that knew what to say, that knew how to get in there. It wasn't blatantly just, you know, oh, here I am, because they're paranoid men. They're very paranoid, you know, and they're scary.
I mean, listen, the questions are just coming a mile a minute, and yes, okay, and you know, first of all, you asked, do I find it hard to believe your testimony? Okay, well, maybe somebody would, maybe some of the listeners might, but I personally don't, only because this subject of these monarch based or this mind control has been something that I've been fascinated with since I was a child, literally, and because of being so interested in this subject when no one else was that I knew, it made me suspicious. Oh my gosh, am I somehow, you know, under mind control or something like this? And this is before I knew a lot about my family and stuff. And so yes, I've been very interested in this topic, and I've revealed to you a little bit about my personal life, that I have somebody that's a friend of mine that I'm involved with, and who's, I'm absolutely convinced is one of these people. And so I've got a question for you. And the thing is, do when you are put onto one of these targets, and one of these men or something like this, I mean, are you almost like irresistible, or they can't even resist you? And also, when y'all are like in bed or whatever, is it just like, do you like just have mind blowing like knowledge, or it's just superhuman sexual abilities? Does it seem that way to them, or anything like that?
I don't know. I noticed that he said to me one time that I seem like two different people because I used to, like, all of a sudden, I use the middle of the night because my sleeping isn't great, and I would wake up and sort of think, oh, there I am, and look next to, there I am, like, and this man was famous. He'd been in the newspapers. I'm not going to say his name. A lot of people know who he is. And I would think, what the hell am I doing in a no-go area? It's a no-go area. You're not allowed to go in that area. If you are, the IRA will question you. Who the hell are you? And when they torture people, they put them on cookers, and they don't muck around. They're dangerous. And there I was, right in the middle of a no-go area, in bed with somebody. I'm English, and he might turn paranoid at any moment and sit me on a cooker or feed me to the pigs. Or, I mean, Robert Nayrac was a British Army guy who used to go down to that area, and he used to go in the pubs, and I suppose he thought, well, I'll make friends with people, and they chopped him up and they fed him to the pigs. They chopped up. They found his teeth and gums underneath a certain bridge. I mean, South Armagh IRA are the gun room of the IRA. They're all they smuggle the weapons there. That's where the hardcore people live, and so it's a highly dangerous area. But as soon as you go in that area in a car, you're followed by another car. So it's no go to British Army. It's no go.
I
And
mean,
there I was. Yeah,
it's just,
there I was in
it's
his.
incredible. And I happen to know enough about your story that you wrote really a kick-ass book about your life experiences. And they some organization, they basically stole your book. And I don't want to get sidetracked from the story, but yeah, I mean, the story is just sensational. But yet at
But
the same
what
time, you can't make this shit up.
Well, what was interesting, I mean, I didn't know anything about this thing until I'd published the book, but what was interesting was I used to wake up and and get in. I must have woke in a different altar, I would say, and I would think, what the hell am I doing here? I would remember going there, but I wouldn't remember, like, the energy wasn't there. Do you know what I mean? So
Kind of.
I remembered going there, but it's like what the hell am I doing? And I would get really paranoid, and sometimes I would start crying. At one time, I remember waking up feeling so scared. I wanted to run out of his house and go to the British Army post, wherever that would be, and say, please, I'm really scared. And it was just absolutely horrible. And he noticed, obviously, and he said to me, got me, he said, you're two different people, I've been noticing. And I suppose the real IRA don't know about such a thing as that kind of spying, but he said to me, you're two different people. One is really devil may care and really sexy, and I'm crazy about her. And the other, he said, is moody, depressed, and absolutely, scared, and just, he said, so what's going on with you? And of course, I didn't know, did I? So I just said, I don't know. I said, maybe I was sexually abused, and that's my sexual abuse part. And he said, ah. So it's just a question of, like, really, targeting. Once I sort of got on that, it was a getting close, and it's a kind of that side of me that I actually haven't seen in, what, 10 years, maybe more. That side of me is very charismatic and can just look at somebody, know what to say to get close, and knows how to strip people of their defenses. And I used it a lot on the newspapers as well, and
It's
that hacked off people. They're like trying to bring this court case and say that, oh, I was a really good investigator because I was a data thief. I can't steal data. I'm shit at doing it. My forte was to get people to talk to me, and I knew as soon as even ringing people, I would hear their energy. I would know what to say to make them tell me things,
They
and that
wanted to
was what I
please you,
did.
didn't they? They wanted to. They wanted to please you somehow.
Oh, really? I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was.
Let me tell you, I think that I know what it is, because I mean I know somebody that's like this, and they're just irresistible, and that's why I was wondering about this guy's, what his reaction to you, or like, was he really like real into you, or
Yeah, he was. But only that side of me. He didn't like the other side. He said,
right?
I don't like, but that was the real me. I thought that was the real me. It felt like this other side of me wasn't me. It felt like it was like, I don't know. But I've lived now for the last 15 years without that side. So I haven't been sexual in 15 years and I don't even miss it. Isn't that weird? It's like that side of me isn't there. It's
Oh,
because
it's been put to sleep for now.
I don't know. I don't have access to it, so it's even weirder, isn't it? I mean, where is it?
Yeah, unless I mean, hopefully it's not still being used, and it's just somehow your memory suppressed. But your memory was not suppressed of this stuff with the IRA, so
No, I had something called co-consciousness, and Fritz Springmeier, who I interviewed on the show, and he did an interview for my book and said I was like Candy Jones, the girl that was used years ago. And he said to me, I'm co-conscious, which means the two parts are co-conscious. And it's weird because it's like it is me, yet not me. It's kind of it's almost like you're driving a car and somebody takes the steering wheel and says to you, you sit in the back.
right.
It's
So
like
it
that.
sounds like when a lot of these people, they have these, between these personalities, there's these amnesiac barriers, but
Yeah.
somehow you don't have those. And so,
No.
although they can put you in different alters, they somehow are cognizant of the activities of one another.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. That's absolutely fascinating. So, I mean, you weren't really immune to it, but you were still not as susceptible to it. It sounds like, as a lot of people are. So it's, I mean, it's just absolutely fascinating and very believable in my opinion, because it just explains a lot of things, how a lot of things, how the I'm not going to say how the real world works, but at the top levels with the real power players and stuff like that, it's a dangerous game.
Well, I feel bitter because I think to myself, if I was bringing back information, and it does seem as if I left a trail of dead bodies, like the News of the World crashed, and that was organised by me. The head of the real IRA went to prison, that was organised by me. And I feel like if you do all these things, okay, they're dirty things, they're nasty things, but at the end of the day, where's the paycheck for doing them? Looking at it coldly,
Well, yeah, no, that's a good point. But then again, sometimes you might ask yourself, well, what's the paycheck for putting the head of the real IRA in prison? I mean, somebody's paycheck might be, one of those paychecks might be gold, and the other one might be lead. So, are you not worried that there be some retribution for that?
well, I wrote the book and told a lot in the book, not about Monarch. I didn't know about Monarch, but I wrote in for the kill and said, quite a lot about the IRA, quite a lot about the phone hacking, and the real IRA got in touch and said, I behaved badly and I behaved, and so yeah, they're not too pleased with me. But as somebody put it, they're not going to go careering around the British countryside looking to put a bullet in my head. So, but I'm not allowed to go back to Ireland. Basically, one of them said to me, if you come back here, we can't protect you, meaning that somebody might decide to pull me in,
Yeah, well, I mean, I hope you're not going back anytime soon, because I just wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah, I can't. It's a shame. It feels, yeah, I can't,
Yeah,
not from,
no, I definitely wouldn't. And another thing is, if they reached out to touch you or something like this, I'm not exactly sure what the expression would be, or trying to assassinate you or something like this, then that would only corroborate your story and put more attention on them and everything. So that this idea of by by bringing the facts out is actually a type of protection.
yeah, exactly. But it leads me to a point. I mean, I always had a lot of money because I was always guided to money and I felt like looked after in a way, and now I feel they call it I stumped from the freedom train, and I feel very much, yeah, I mean, I'm living in poverty basically. I'm struggling because I've always felt, I always had that part of me, and that part of me knew what to do, knew where to go. But with that part of me cut off, I'm just like a normal person. And because I live like a normal person, I'm like struggling. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, definitely.
it
And
doesn't feel right.
yeah, no, right. Especially because you're used to, whenever you were doing these missions and doing these operations and stuff like that, you didn't have time to be doing what normal people do for a regular paycheck, So they had a big investment in you and the operations that you were on, and so and not only that, you had to travel in certain circles and all this stuff, and so you're no longer doing that, and also maybe there is some type of punitive thing, like maybe they're just punishing you somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, I just haven't got access to that thing. I did have a thing with Aquino, like people mention this, that a year went past after my experience with Aquino, and I was dreaming, sleeping, I was on the astral, and I sought him out, and I tried to lure him towards me, being a little bit sexual. Didn't really work. I don't. He's not. I know he's probably just interested in his wife or whatever. He wasn't interested in me. I tried to lure him towards me. Anyway, eventually I got close to him and I grabbed him around the throat and I was squeezing and squeezing and trying to strangle him. And I kept saying to him, "Where are the keys? Give me the keys, you bitch! Give me the keys!" And that was seemed to me to be a certain part of me, that not me speaking now. And I don't know what I meant by the keys, but maybe it's keys to the separate altars, that it does feel bad to be locked down, on lockdown. I almost feel like on lockdown, like sort of somebody's, I'm just a sliver of myself, and it doesn't feel great, it feels bad.
Yes, I understand what you're saying, and let me tell you, with all of with you, you know, I think that could potentially be sitting on a gold mine, just because your story is so interesting and people really want to hear it, and it's, I mean, obviously true. I don't know how you did on the book and everything, but
The
it would.
book flopped. The book, well, I didn't have mind control in the book. But I mean, I've rewritten this over in another book. I mean, I self-published it. It seemed to get nicked, and now I think it's free online. I think, I put it out there to agents. I think they don't believe in all that stuff, basically. The mainstream don't believe in it.
Well, it's becoming more. There's a lot more people that are starting to believe in it, and then could be, like you say, a lot of people that don't believe in it. But then there also could be people that do believe in it and are like, not wanting to publish it. Now there is a YouTube channel and a company here in the United States, in New Jersey, called DigiNext, DIGINEXT, and they are taking. And the only reason I know this is because they're making a show for this person I was talking to earlier, but they are having investors in the media listen to people's pitches about different shows and stuff they'd like to do. But I mean, I I think that you should have a show. About people, that's compelling stuff. And I mean, not just that. You can't be just that over and over. But you as a person with that background and everything, with those credentials, just having a show about the paranormal, spies, mind control, any kind of cloak and dagger stuff. You know, because you're already a media seasoned media personality. I think that's where your fortune lies.